Hi, hello, it's Helen from the Cut Flower Patch, here today to talk through how we sowed the seeds, the February seeds from our February and March seed box. But before I do that, I just wanted to take a few minutes just to run through a couple of changes we've made at the Cut Flower Patch recently, changes I hope for the better. And just to talk through the process a little bit. We've got lots of lovely new subscribers this time, so I thought it might be helpful just to talk through a little bit about what we do and how we do it. First off then, I thought I'd just run through the contents of your box and what's in there. So all new first-time subscribers will have received one of our lovely wooden seed dibbers. You don't actually need these for sowing this month, but you will need it next month. So just put that somewhere safe, and in fact you'll need it hopefully a fair bit in the future. Also in your box you'll have a pressed flower handmade gift card. For those of you who've been with us for a while, you'll know I do like to press flowers. And indeed a lot of the flowers that you will be sowing and growing, you will be able to press quite a few of those. And I make all sorts of things with them, gift cards, greetings cards, some pictures as well. What I like to call botanical art. So if you're interested in pressing flowers, then I'll be showing you what I do and how I do it as and when the flowers are ready to be pressed. I don't think actually any of the flowers we're sowing this month will be suitable for pressing. No, they won't, but they will be suitable for drying. I haven't produced a lot of dried flowers. I did try some last year with varying results, but I've learned quite a lot. So again, as and when the time comes, I can share that with you for those of you who are interested in drying flowers too. Also in your box, you'll have these plastic labels. There's 6 of them, one for each seed that you're sowing. So you just need to write on those with a permanent marker. If you don't use a permanent marker, it will rub off if it gets wet. So you just need to write the name of the flower that you're sowing. And I always find it useful to put the date on too, so you've got a reference for when you actually sowed it. Some people aren't so keen on the plastic labels for obvious reasons, but I do find they're the most practical. And you can actually obviously use them on both sides, so once you're finished with you can just scribble out on one side and write on the next. Also using nail varnish remover, you can clean off even the permanent marker, so you can actually reuse them. The other day I did actually try soaking a whole load in a pot of nail varnish remover, and it took all the surface off the label and some of them warped, so that didn't work very well. But you can just put some nail varnish remover on a cloth and just rub that off. So they can be reused. They're not just one use only plastic. And of course, the most important thing in our box is our lovely seeds. Oops, there we go. So there's 6 packets of seeds in the box, and this is 2 months worth of seeds. So 3 of them we're going to be sowing today in February, and then 3 in March. So if you just pop the March ones on one side and keep them somewhere dry. So the March ones are sunflower, dahlia and gypsophila. And then today for February we're sowing the Ageratum, the Zinnia and the Amaranthus. And I will talk through those as I sow them. So I'll talk a little bit more about the flowers and what you can expect. And also obviously the best technique for sowing each type of flower. The other thing I wanted to mention was how you go about planning your cut flower patch. Now I don't want everyone to get too bogged down with that at the moment, particularly for new sowers who just don't want to take in too much information at this stage. But one of the common problems I think with cut flower patch growing is that people sow too many seeds. So they sow a lot of seeds. We supply very high quality seeds, so a lot of the seeds will germinate. You'll then be potting them on, and then you have to nurture those seeds until you can put them out, actually sow them out into your cut flower patch or into your garden. And so people just get overwhelmed with seeds, and they just haven't got the space to nurture them all. So again, when I sow the seeds, I will talk through how many seeds I'm sowing and what I'm going to be using those seeds for. I do actually produce a planning document, which is scaled items of all the different seeds that we're sowing. So really the final spacing of all the seeds. I used to include these in the cut flower patch boxes, but I found that a lot of people just weren't using them, so that was a little bit wasteful. So now I'm going to make this available as a download from the website. And I'm also going to do 2 different scales, a scale of 1 to 10 and a scale of 1 to 20. As I say, probably don't get too bogged down with that at the moment, but at some point you might want to think about, you probably will want to think about how you manage your patch and what you're going to put where. And there are very simple instructions on the website about how to use this, so you might find that useful in the future. But for today, I think we will enjoy sowing our seeds, and we will get started with that. So I'm going to head off down to my greenhouse and we'll get going. So first up, I'm going to sow the lovely Amaranthus, also known as Love Lies Bleeding. You'll find that Amaranthus is a beautiful and fairly unique addition to your cut flower patch, and it is very easy to grow. There's lots of varieties of Amaranthus, but we've chosen the hanging variety called Coral Fountain because it has sort of tassels of sort of a dusky pink coral, and it's very good for cutting, and it adds lots of sort of shape and colour to your vase. It also makes a good filler for the back of borders and also looks good in large containers, so you might want to sow a few for that purpose as well, but I'll come on to that. It won't press very well, so it doesn't make a very good pressed flower, but it does make a lovely dried flower. It keeps its coral colour for quite some time, so when they're blooming, I'll have a go at drying some of those, and you might want to have a go at doing that too. So first off, to sow this, I'm going to sow it in quite a small container, actually, going back to what I was saying about being mindful of space, and if you haven't got a lot of space to work with, sometimes using small containers is a good idea. So this container is a homemade one, so I think this had mushrooms in it. I had to, you probably can't see, but I had to poke some holes into the bottom of this using a skewer. So if you do use a homemade container, always add drainage holes. If you don't, the tray will become waterlogged and the seeds won't be terribly happy. There is something on the cut flower patch that shows different containers that I've used over the years for sowing seeds, all of them homemade. I mean, you can use I don't always use homemade containers. You can use a purpose-made tray like this one if you want to, or a modular tray, but again, as long as it has drainage holes in. So what I'm going to do is fill this with sieved multi-purpose peat-free compost. You can use seed compost if you wish, but I find multi-purpose compost is fine, and I do always buy peat-free because it is a more environmentally friendly product. As I say, I sieve this because you want to get rid of any lumps and bumps. The seeds are small, so you don't want them getting sort of trapped behind a big lump of compost. This is the sieve that I use. If you don't have a sieve, you can always sort of rub it through your hands. But say, just try and get rid of the worst of the lumps and the bumps. So I filled that with compost. I'm then going to compress it very lightly. You want to get rid of any pockets of air. You don't want to take the air out completely because the seeds will need some air, some circulation, but just again get the air pockets out because we do want the seeds to actually make contact with the compost. I'm then going to water this lightly. You can water it after you've sown the seeds, but because the seeds are so small, I do find it better to water it beforehand. Be careful not to overwater it. You just want the compost to be moist. You don't want it to be soaking wet. I just use these adapters. These are from Amazon, I think, and you just pop them on a normal, just a water bottle. You can use a tippy cup like this one, or you could use a small watering can with a very fine hose. But just to say, just moisten it lightly. Now in the case of Amaranthus, it is a big plant and it needs at least a 50 centimetre spacing. Each plant needs a 50 centimetre spacing in your plot. And I have a very small cut flower patch at the front of my garden, so I'll probably only put 2 plants in my patch. As I said before, they look good at the back of the border, so I'll also probably put a couple in my border too. And then maybe 1 in a container. I had a very big container that I put an Amaranthus in last year, and that worked very well. Now the seeds are tiny. For those of you who've been with us some time, you'll know I don't like small seeds. What I'm going to try and do is, you've got about 100 seeds in your packet, and I'm going to try and take about a quarter of them. She says I've probably taken far more than that, but probably about 25 seeds, and then just sprinkle them lightly over the surface of the compost. I've probably sown more than 25 there. I'm going to pop the rest back in the packet, so if those don't take, I can do another sowing. Just keep your seeds nice and dry if you're saving them. So just touch those lightly just to ensure they're making contact with the compost. And then we want a very, very light sprinkling of compost over the top. The smaller the seed, the less deeply you cover it. Some you surface sow, but the bigger seeds you tend to sow a bit deeper. But we'll cover all of those as we sow all the different types of seeds over the coming months. Okay, so that looks fine. You then want to put your label in. There we go. As I say, I've sown 25 seeds on the basis that probably ultimately I need 5 plants. So that allows for a few failures. And maybe I will get a few extras as well. And often I just give those away to neighbours and things if I have more plants than I actually need. And if you have sown too many seeds in the tray or a lot of seeds in the tray, don't worry, we can always thin those out later. I'm then going to pop that in a plastic bag. Again, this is just one I've reused from a supermarket. Tie that up, and then that is going to go onto my kitchen windowsill. And I'm going to check that fairly regularly, every few days or so. And as soon as I see the first signs of germination, the plastic bag will come off, and then this will come down into the greenhouse. And then that will allow the seedlings to benefit from the light and the air. If you don't move it into a lighter place, then the seedlings will start to search for the light and they'll become a bit leggy. Don't worry if you don't have a greenhouse. There is an article on the Cut Flower Patch website with alternatives for greenhouses, polytunnels, plastic boxes, anything like that will do. Cold frames. So it's just somewhere to protect the seedlings from the cold weather and from the wind. And then when they get their first set of true leaves, we'll then prick them out into 9 centimetre pots. You don't need to worry about that for now. That'll be a few weeks away. But essentially what we're looking for is when a seedling first grows, it gets what they call its seed leaves, which are the 2 first leaves. And then it gets its first 2 true leaves. This is a flower called Gadisha, which I sowed a few months ago now. And I've pricked that out and put it into a 9 centimetre pot. That's a pot that's 9 centimetres in diameter. Again, there's something on the Cut Flower Patch website about pricking out when the time comes. But for now, we're just waiting for the seed. We want to get the seedlings to take and develop. So that's Amaranthus. Now I'll go on to the lovely Zinnia. So Zinnia, it's a gorgeous flower, and they're great for cutting, and they also make a good border plant too, like Amaranthus. This time we've chosen a variety called Bennery's Giant Mix. It's a special selection of giant zinnia with thick, sturdy stems, so it does make a really glorious, fully double-bloomed flower. Now, zinnias don't like root disturbance, so in this instance I am going to sow them in a purpose-made modular tray. So this is a 24 cell tray, which I quite like. It gives the give the seeds plenty of room to grow. So what I've done in this instance is fill the tray again with sieved multi-purpose peat-free compost. As I said before, you can use seed compost if you prefer. And then I'm going to depress that slightly again, just with another seed tray. Again, don't press it too hard because we don't want to get rid of all the air, we just want to get rid of all the pockets of air. And then again, I'm going to water that lightly using my very clever watering device. Again, be careful not to overwater. It's a difficult concept, isn't it? How much is too much water? But say you want it to sort of glisten rather than be soaked through. Now with the zinnia, it is a real centerpiece in your vase. So what I'm going to do this time, you've got about 40 seeds in your packet. They're much easier to handle than the Amaranthus seeds. And I'm going to pop one seed in each cell. So hopefully I will get 24 plants. I'll probably put about 5 in my patch. They don't take up as much space as the Amaranthus. And they are a flower that you'll want to use a lot of, I think, in your vases because they are lovely and colourful. But say they are a little bit trickier to grow, so I hope to get 24 germinating, but I might not be quite as successful as that. What you might want to do, you'll obviously have some leftover seeds. In this instance, you might want to consider successional sowing. So these can be sown right through to the end of April. So you might want to sow some now and then maybe do another batch in a month or so's time. And if you do that, you'll then get hopefully zinnia all the way from sort of July through to September, October time. But again, it depends on your own circumstances and how much space you have available. So I won't sow them all now because it's not terribly interesting for you to watch that. So it's a bigger seed, so we want to cover it with a bit more compost than we used before. Again, I won't do them all, I'll do it after we've finished making the video. But you get the idea, you want to sort of cover that quite nicely. Then again, this needs to be covered up. And these modular trays come with their own purpose-built plastic lids. Oh, actually, I need to remember to put the label in. Yeah, these come with their own plastic trays. Plastic lids. If you have a modular tray without lids, then you can put a shower cap on it to keep the moisture in, or you could use a plastic bag. So again, that's going to go onto the kitchen windowsill, and I'm going to check that regularly. And again, the first signs of germination, as soon as I see the seedlings coming through, the cover will come off and this will come down into the greenhouse. Again, if you don't have a greenhouse, there are lots of alternatives that you can use. So don't worry about that. It's a question I commonly get asked: do I need a greenhouse? And the short answer is no, but you do need somewhere to protect your seedlings. So I'm hoping the zinnia does really well for us because it is a beautiful flower and with lots of colour and, as I say, lots of double blooms. So next we will sow our ageratum. Ageratum, which is also known as floss flower, is a lovely colourful sort of vase filler. We've chosen for our cut flower patch seed box a variety called Timeless, which is a mix of lovely pink, white and blue shades. Timeless is bred to be taller than many varieties of ageratum, and so makes a very good cut flower. Now, again, because it's a small seed, I'm going to use another small container. So I've used one of my homemade containers. I think this had tomatoes or strawberries in it. In this instance, it's already, you probably can't see it, but it already had holes in the bottom of the container. So I didn't need to puncture any holes into this one. I've already filled this with sieved multi-purpose peat-free compost, depressed it slightly and and moistened the surface. Now, as I say, this is another tiny seed. You have around 100 of these seeds in your packet. It doesn't look like 100, it will be, probably a few more. And we never shortchange on seeds. So what I'm going to do is take about half of the seeds here and sprinkle these as evenly as possible over the surface. You probably can't see this, but I'm trying to get them all across the surface of the compost. Important to make sure you've got dry hands as well, that really helps. Okay, now in this instance it is a small seed, so this is surface sown, so it really needs the light to help it to germinate. So if you just press it gently, just to try and make sure the seeds make contact with the compost. You can't even see them actually, but hopefully they're all there. I'm going to pop my label in, and then again this is going to go into a plastic bag and onto the kitchen windowsill. And like with the other two, the first signs of germination is going to come off the windowsill, out of the bag and into the greenhouse. And again, when we get our first true leaves, we will prick those out, but that's going to be a few weeks off yet. Every month I do what I call a sowing and growing update and post that onto the website and send you an email to let you know it's available. And what I do in that instance is take photographs of where my seedlings, plants are at that stage in the growing process. So that gives you an idea of how mine are coming along, and you can compare and contrast. Often cut flower patch growers' seedlings are doing much better than mine, so I'm always happy to see that. Anyway, that covers everything for today. If you've got any questions or not sure about anything, do feel free to drop me an email or send me a message on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, please feel free to tag any photographs on Facebook and Instagram as well. Okay, well, I hope that's been useful. And I look forward to seeing you in March when we'll be sowing the 3 packets of seeds from our March kit.